Welcome back. In this video, we're going to take the knowledge that we have acquired so far throughout the course, and we're going to start putting it together and building more complex components. So let's start off with something that's complex enough that I think you're going to learn something, but easy enough that it isn't going to take too long for us to actually get through, right? So let's start with like a basic to-do app, right? I think that's like the prototypical like first React project. And so let's create a new directory called to-do. And a new file we'll call index.tsx. And in this video, what I want to do is just lay it out. We're just going to prototype what it looks like. And then in the next videos, what we're going to do is add all the logic and the functionality and stuff like that. So export default function to do, just like we've done before. And then we're just going to return. And then I'm just going to put a div wrapper in here. Now, typically what I would do is for this kind of wrapper here, this would be probably like on the page where the component actually shows up. And then I would try to control like the width of the component. But since we're loading these components directly into this app.tsx file, I'm just going to do it in the component itself, which is fine. And here's something I haven't showed you. It's the style prop. And the style prop takes an object of CSS properties. So we also have this main Sass file, and we could just write this in here as well. But for the prototype stage, I might not even go that far. And I think this is useful for you to actually know. So let's say we want the width of this to be, I don't know, 30 rem. Let's start there. And we're going to have to set the margin to 0 auto, like this. This will make sure that our component is 30 rem wide, so 30 by 16, whatever that comes out to be. I'm not sure what the math is. And then the 0 auto on there will make sure that it's centered on the page. Okay. And so we're going to use some Bootstrap components in order to make this up really fast so that we don't have to do a bunch of custom styling on things. So, I mean, if you wanted to go ahead and look over the documentation on this, just if you have any questions, you can come to the React Bootstrap.github.io website here, and they have all the documentation. And so we're going to be using cards, and we're going to use some list groups. We're going to put our to-do items inside of this list group. We're going to be dealing with checkboxes and just some general buttons. We've seen buttons in the past, so that should not be anything that's really all that new. Okay, so let's get back in the editor and see what we can do here. So let's make a card. And it'll look like this. And then we'll have a card header, like so. And this will just say to-dos. Okay, and then we're going to need like some kind of card body here, like so. And then this is going to have some kind of like a list thing inside of it. So I'm just going to go back to the documentation here and look at list groups. And I'm just going to steal the example that they have here. And I'm just going to paste it in here. And then all I did there was I clicked inside of list group and then I pressed Alt Enter and it automatically did the import for me. And I didn't have to do anything extra for that. Okay, so this is kind of a good start. We're also going to need some kind of like input. We need a way for us to actually enter in text for our little to-do list here. So let's go ahead and we'll add a form. And I'm going to have to import this. Again, I just click in there and Alt-Enter, and it brought up my autocomplete menu there, and I just chose the import that I needed. And then this will be a form.group. So if you're wondering where I'm getting this from, this is just React Bootstrap forms. So you can come in here and go into the form section. Let's see here. And then start looking over the overview. But the basic premise is that you have a form, and then inside of it, you have form groups. And inside of these form groups, you have a form label and some kind of form controller, right? So in fact, I'm just going to steal this form.control while I'm at it. And by default, the type of the control is of a HTML input. And then we're going to have for the placeholder, what do you need done? And then I think we're going to also have a button on here. And we're going to import this the same way we've imported the other things. And then we'll just call this add. And then we have to change the variant on it. And we will change it to success, like this. And then I'll just Control-Alt-L just to reformat my code. Okay, this is looking all right. Let's go ahead and take a look at it inside of the window. So we need to add it to our app.tsx file here. And we'll just clean up this import. Save the file and back to our window. And here's what we have. Kind of ugly. I kind of want to make this dark. So what I'm going to do is I am going to look for colors. I forget what it is. Color schemes, background colors, border colors, form control colors. Under here in the Bootstrap documentation, they have color modes. This is exactly what I'm looking for. And I already know from using Bootstrap, this is essentially what we're looking for. This data-bs-theme equals light. And then we're going to see down here that there's a dark version. And they have an example up here of the light drop down and the dark drop down. Right? And the way that we can change whether it's the light or the dark theme is by setting this on whatever we're working on. So I'm going to come back to our to-do here. And if you're wondering how I jumped from this file to the other file, all I did was I pressed Control and then I clicked on the component and it'll take me directly to the component. So on our card here, let's add that data-bs-theme equals dark. And then we can go back and look at it and it should be a dark looking thing. All right, that's pretty good. I like that. So we have some problems here. Our input is like stretched all the way across here and it's looking kind of ugly. So what I want to do here on our form is I want to add a class. So we'll use a class name property and we'll add a margin top of 3. This will add a 1 rem margin to the top of our form component. And so now we got a little more space here and it looks like we still want a little more here, padding. I wonder if we kind of screwed this up, and I think we did. I think we just need to take this form here and put it inside of the card body. Now we might have too much margin on this. So let's go take a look. Yeah. So now it automatically gave us the padding or the margin that we were looking for on the top of this. So let's just take this out. And on this list group, instead we can put the class name and we can add a margin top of 3 here. Okay, this is looking a little bit better. So I want to stretch this button probably across this entire thing and then add a little margin top to it so that it just is offset a little bit. And we'll add class name is margin top. Let's just give it a little less, like 2. A margin top 2 in Bootstrap will add a 0.5 rem margin to the top. And we can use the W-100 class from Bootstrap, and this will just add width 100 to the styles on it. Okay. And this is looking all right. Let's go ahead and throw some checkboxes on these little things here. So actually, I think the first thing I want to do is maybe do some data modeling. So let's go ahead and do that first. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a new file inside of our to-do directory, and I'm just going to call this types.ts. We need to come up with like a data structure for our to-dos. So let's define our types here. So what I'm going to have here is we're going to export an interface. We're going to call it I to do, like this. Y name your interface like this. I mean, I've seen some people like this and some people don't like this, but the reason why I do this is I is for interface and then to do is for to do, obviously. The reason for doing it this way is because typically, usually there's an interface and then there's the component, right? And we have to import the interface into the component or into other places that may also use to do in some way. And so by just putting this I in front of it, you just know that it's an interface when you import it into other places, and it causes things to not clash with the same names, okay? I mean, we could do other things as well, like name it to-do item or whatever, but we may end up refactoring our component to also have like to-do item. And so I find this is just generally the easiest way to do it. Well, I don't think we talked about this in the video when we talked about rendering multiple components, but every time you're rendering a component from an array of some kind, like using the map function, each one of those items should have a unique ID inside of them. And the reason for that is just because of the way that React handles rendering those types of situations. As a general rule of thumb, anytime you're going to use a bunch of objects inside of an array, they need to have some kind of ID or key or a field like that. So this is going to be ID, and it's just going to be a string. And then our to-do is going to have some kind of text on it, right? Whatever the text of the to-do is. And then it needs some kind of like Boolean value, like, are we finished with this to-do item? Let's just call it like done. Is this item done? And it can be a Boolean, okay? So let's go ahead and, since we're just kind of still prototyping this, let's make a little array here. And we can have const items is I to do array, right? Set up our array. This ID will be 1. Text will be, we'll just call it item 1. It doesn't have to be anything fancy, and then we'll just have done is equal to false. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to copy these. And then I don't know if I have this rebound or not, but Control D on my keyboard here is to just duplicate the selection. So that's all I'm doing here is I'm just going to duplicate this a few times, and then we're just going to change these real quick. We'll make this last one true, just because we might do a little extra styling. Okay. So what I want to do here is we're just going to items.map. And then for the map function, usually I use v and I. V is for the value, and then you can have an I here for the index if you need it. But we're just going to use v here for the value. And then it's going to look something like this. This will allow us to render all our items. And then we need to make sure we add our key here, our key prop. And that's going to be v.id. Okay, so I screwed up a little something here. I missed a parentheses right there. And then inside of here, we're going to have the v.text. And I'm just going to Control Alt L there to reformat my code, and we can go. Okay, so we're getting an error here where it says we have an unexpected token, and it's pointing to right here. It doesn't like what we've done here, so we've messed something up here. I can see the editor here, the error here in my editor. Okay, so what we did here is we missed a parentheses here, and this is starting to look pretty good, but I think what I want here is maybe like a checkbox on the left-hand side here, and maybe like some kind of delete icon on this side. So let's go ahead and add those real quick. And if I want to see how to make a checkbox real quick by just checking the documentation here, I can see that I can use this form.check component. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to like copy this out of here. And what we're going to have to do here is we're going to have to wrap this in probably a... No, we won't have to do that. We'll put it inside of here. Will be a div. Okay. Just going to format that, and we're going to need probably a few different divs in here. So we're going to have like a wrapping div of some kind. That's going to wrap all our stuff together. And then I'm going to have a div in here for the checkbox, and I'm just going to paste a checkbox in here. And it doesn't need any kind of label. It technically should have an ID of some kind, so let's just do to-do check, and then we can use the v.id. And then lastly, we're going to need like another div here that's going to hold some kind of button. That's for trash, and it's going to be a variant of danger, so that it's a red button, that we know that it's a delete button. And then if we go look at this, we're going to see that it's all kind of messed up. And I already know it's all messed up. This is not what we want to do. We can use Flexbox here to fix this up for us. So let's go ahead and we can add a class name here of d-flex. This will activate flex on the children as well. And then we want to align our items to the center. And we can see how that's looking. I know that's still not 100% right. So the problem that we have here is we want this item here with the text in it to like take up all the remaining space that it can. And that's pretty easy to accomplish as well with just another Bootstrap class. So on this one, we can do class name, flexgrow1. Now let's go take a look at it. And this is giving us what we're looking for in terms of how this should look. But everything is a little too close to one another, so we need to add a little bit of margin here. So on this one, we can add a margin start of 3, and then on the button as well. Okay, this is looking pretty good, but instead of this saying trash, I just want it to be like an icon. So the cool thing is that Bootstrap has an entire icon package. So if you come to icons.getbootstrap.com, they have all this stuff in here, and there's a few different ways that we could handle importing in these icons. I'm going to do it the same way that I would do it in a production environment. So I'm just going to install the npm package for Bootstrap icons, and then I'm just going to import that into my Sass file. And then we can use it that way. So we can copy this string here, the MPI I Bootstrap icons. So what I stands for is for install. It's a shorthand way to write it. I think in the past I've just shown you how to write install. And then we want to make sure that this is saved to our file. So we use 2 dashes and save like this. If you don't use the dash save, it won't add it to your package.json file, and then you won't be able to use, won't be able to just easily install it in the future. So make sure you include this. And you notice when you're looking at, I don't think I've really talked about this, but this isn't really the point of the video, I guess. But inside of your package.json file, you have 2 sections. You have dependencies and dev dependencies. So when you use dash dash save, it saves it to your dependencies. And if you use dash dash save dev like that, it'll save it to your dev dependencies. I also think you can do -d instead, and it'll save it to your dev dependencies. So the more you know. Now what I want to do is I want to go and I want to find a trash icon, and I've already done that, but if you're trying to find it, just go into the Bootstrap stuff here and search trash, and you'll find the icon that we're looking at. And then all I have to do here is just copy this I element. And let's go back to our to-do thing. And we're going to post it right here on the button. And let's go take a look at, and we can see that we're not actually getting the icon because we didn't actually import the icon CSS. So let's go to our Sass file, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to duplicate this line with Control-D on my keyboard. And then it's Bootstrap icons. I can just erase the rest of this. And then I'm going to press Control space there in order to bring up my autocomplete on this. And then I'm going to go to icons, and okay, that was the wrong one actually. JK. It's in font and then we just want to choose the Bootstrap icon CSS, like this. Or was there a Sass file there? Oh, actually, there was a Sass file there. Okay, so let's go ahead and import that. Okay, that one didn't work. Just kidding. When I did this before, I actually used the CSS file, and that's fine. We can do that. It's not a big whoop-de-whoop. And there we go. Now we have our little trash icon here. And this is looking like a good little to-do app. What else do we need to know here? I think when we mark them done, maybe we want to have a style where like the text here gets crossed out. So what we could do here is go back to our to-dos. And what I did kind of in between this lesson here was I added this function because I didn't want to have to write this function live while I was doing it. But this is the class names function, and I actually took this from Tailwinds. There's another CSS library called Tailwinds, and in some of their documentation code, they use a function that's very similar to this and basically allows us to pass in a bunch of different strings and arrays or whatever, or basically a bunch of strings, an array of strings. And then whatever evaluates to true, it all gets joined together. It'll make sense once I show you how it actually works, I think. So it's a lot harder to explain how it actually works. So what I want to do here is I want to use the class names. We need to actually change this into a closure like this. And then we can use the class names function. And this is a great way to add optional classes to things. So this is the basic idea, is you pass in basically multiple items to it, and then it will just concat everything together that we need. And then so let's say we want to add a different class if this item is marked as done. So here we can write v.done. And then we can use the question mark here. And this is a shorthand way of kind of like writing an if statement. We've talked about this before. And so the first statement here is your truthy statement. And so if it's done, we want to add some kind of class here. And then our second statement is the false class. And then we don't want to add anything. It'll just be like null or something here is fine as well. And then for a class, okay, so if we want to strike through with Bootstrap, I think they have a class in here. Trying to think off the top of my head. Typography? Let's go take a look. Yeah, so it looks like they have a number of things here. So we can either use this del tag or this s tag. And if we keep going down here, we can see that there's actually a text decoration line through. So let's go ahead and just steal that. And then we can put this here in our code like so. And then we'll go back to our window and check it out. And then if you remember our last item here, it's done with set to true. And then we can see here that our item is marked out as well. So I think this pretty much wraps up the first video here. We just did some, what we did was we installed Bootstrap icons, we imported it in, we did a mock-up of our little to-do app, and in the next video, we'll actually start writing some React code and making this reactive. So I'll see you there.